Video on changing out the coolant tank on a 2004 Saturn Ion. Let me bring it back over here for a second. There's my Saturn Ion. Had that puppy about 12 years. Still serving me well. Still runs like a sewing machine. Gonna keep it until it just don't run no more. Okay, had a problem with the coolant light coming on. Coolant level was fine. Temps were fine. No leakage. But the coolant light was coming on indicating low fluid. It started out intermittent, and then it started coming on more and more and more, and pretty soon it just stayed on all the time. The only way to get rid of that is to replace the coolant tank, which is right here. The coolant tank has a float on the bottom of it where the radiator hose hooks it to the engine, and the float goes bad. And as I said, the only way to replace it is replacing the tank itself. I would suggest going with the Delco tank, AC Delco. That's what this one is. That's the stock tank. Dorman makes one, but from what I heard, it's not as good, so I would suggest get the AC Delco one. Might be a couple bucks more, but they're not that bad anyway. Okay, to remove this tank, you have to remove 3 bolts and loosen a 4th one. The tank itself only has 2 bolts holding it in, and let me get a little close. You can see the first one is right there. You can see mine is gone because I didn't lose the bolt, but there's an insert in there that clips to the body, and then the screws into the insert, and that's what I lost, was the insert. I heard it come loose when I was working on this thing, but it didn't register at the time what it was until I went to put it back together. I've spent more time looking for that insert than it took me the whole job, and I still can't find it. My engine ate it. The other one is right here, right there. You can see it right there. Put a flashlight on it, and you can see there's a bracket right there, and the tank is underneath the bracket. So it makes this thing a little bit harder. If the tank would have been on top of the bracket, it would have been a lot easier. So anyway, that's a 10 millimeter. You have to take it off, take the other one off, as I said, the one that's gone right there. And because you have to maneuver this tank underneath this bracket right there, you have to be able to loosen this thing up to be able to move this, not remove it, but move it enough to be able to slide this tank out. One of the screws to get to that is right there. That's a 13 millimeter bolt, and it's one of the brackets that you need to be able to move that. That's what that's for. It's got nothing to do with the tank. The last one is going to be down right there. See where my flashlight's pointing? Right there. It's a 10 millimeter bolt, just identical to this one, but it's down. Let's see if I can find it again. Right there. That's the one you don't need to take all the way off. You can just take it off like halfway, and it'll be enough to move all this. Also, too, don't take this plate off. It's plastic. You can take it right off, but it exposes the positive cable. The battery's in the trunk. That's a positive cable for jumping. You don't want that exposed. If you take this off to try to give yourself a little more room, chances are when you're moving your wrenches around, you're going to end up brushing that thing, creating a spark, scaring the crap out of yourself. So just leave that cover on. It's not necessary to remove it. Also, too, you don't need to drain your coolant. Get yourself one of these. This is a good thing to have around. It's a siphon tube. It's good for stuff like draining oil out of the lawnmower. If you don't want to flip the lawnmower upside down to locate the drain bolt, you can just drain it like this, just as good. A coolant, anything else you might need it for, it's a handy tool. So I just popped that thing in there inside the tank, put me a little bucket right there, and then just siphoned it out and drained it. Sure beats draining the whole coolant system. During this whole process, I probably only lost half a cup of coolant. So once you drain that tank, you're good to go. So anyway, just do it that way. Okay, once you remove those bolts, well, now the fun begins, because you have to disconnect the hose from the tank. That's the hardest part right there. There are videos showing manhandling this tank, shoving it around on its side to try to get underneath it to the clamp. I was not able to do that. I'm just not nimble enough. I couldn't get my hands underneath there. I couldn't move the tank enough. If I could get to the clamp, I sure didn't have any purchase on it to be able to remove it and then nonetheless removing the hose. So I just gave up on it. So the way to do it, the way it's a lot easier, instead of fiddling with that, just trace the hose at the bottom of the tank all the way where it comes in the engine. And if you look right here, you're going to see the hose. You can see the hose right there. In fact, let me get my hands underneath there. Let me get my, you can see my hands right there. No, take that back. It's right up here. I was pointing to the wrong place. Let me position the camera again. Okay. Right there. Now you can see the hose. And you can see the clamp. See the clamp right there? I can get my hands completely around the hose. So it's a lot easier trying to mess with it from right here. Move this clamp and slide it up. Move the hose until you can get it out of there. Now, still kind of a hassle, because when you're messing with coolant hoses, they get like fused on. So you have to keep playing with it, and eventually you'll break it free unless you completely destroy the hose. It might be a good idea to buy yourself a hose. So it's a hose from the engine to the bottom of the coolant tank, in case you destroy the hose trying to get it out. Then you just pop a new hose on there. But anyway, once you get that out of there on that side, it makes removing the tank a lot easier, because now you can just grab a hold of the tank, flip it up a little bit like this, and just pull it out, and the hose will come with it. The hose will be attached. Then, once you're on the ground with the hose, with the tank, it's real easy to take the tank off then, take the hose off, excuse me, get your replacement tank, put the hose on, get it positioned just right, and then go in reverse. Slide the hose back the way it came, set the tank back in, and then hook the hose back up to the motor. A lot easier than trying to get that hose off at the bottom of the tank. Not mentioning how much hassle it is putting the hose back on the tank, trying to do it from underneath the tank when you don't have very much room to work with. So I did it. Coolant temp light is gone. Good to go. If you own a Saturn, you're probably going to have to do this sooner or later, because that float thing is going to go bad, and it's just not a serviceable part. So hopefully this video helps somebody that's attempting this job. See you later.